Afterwards. Awesome. So I'm so glad you guys could join us today for our Gradient 101 session. We will be talking about the fill in the blank and numeric question types. So the team today helping you with the Gradient 101 sessions is myself, Kate Pylan. I'm a customer success coach with GradeCam. And then Katie is also on the call, and she's our director of customer experience. She's going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions as we're going through the information, feel free to pop those right into the chat, and she'll get you an answer, get you resources, and anything additional that you need. We really want to make sure you guys got all the resources and walk away knowing a little bit more about how you can use GradeCam in your classroom. So here's our sessions. We've had a few to start off this year. We do have some previous ones that were happening the previous session back before the new year started. So if you'd like to check those out, you can always access those here on this front. I guess I could call it just schedule page, title page, if you'd like to do that. Today, we're going to talk about filling in the blank with numeric questions. Sorry, my screen is jumping really funny. So with that, we'll kind of get started. We're going to go over a step-by-step about the different question types, some pro tips, and some extra credit. So really this month, we've kind of focused on expanding the question types that are being used in GradeCam. Often people like jump right in and use multiple choice, and we just want to show that there's a lot of other question types in there and how maybe that may apply to different types of classrooms in that different situation. I was an art teacher in the classroom. I was a coach, so there was a lot of different ways that I like to utilize the different question types and kind of expanding my repertoire of the formative assessments that I could create. So we're going to jump right in here on our step-by-step, and just remember that these resources are available so that you don't have to be furiously writing everything down, and you can always access them after the presentation today. We are going to walk into the keys tab, talk about these two question types in particular because they're fairly similar, but just talking a little bit about the differences there. And then we'll kind of review how that looks like from assessments, both paper and online from that standpoint, and kind of walk through that. So remember, those are all hyperlinked. I just got to move some things around here a little bit. So let me jump over to GradeCam so I can actually walk through these particular question types. If you are in an existing assignment or if you're creating new, you've probably been into the key and you've edited questions before. So just as a reminder of how to do that, if you check the box next to a question when you're on the keys tab of an assignment and select on edit, I am modifying an existing one. You get the option there over here on the side that says type, and then you can choose what kind of type. So there's a lot of different varieties that you can try out. We've talked about the multiple choice before and how you can use that in different ways. A couple of weeks ago, we focused more on the rubric type questions. So there's some additional resources on that one, but we're going to focus on numeric and fill in the blank today. So numeric is collecting number responses from students, and that is collecting their handwritten response. If they're online, this is a text field, so they would type that information in. So the big difference between numeric and fill in the blank is numeric is numbers only, whereas fill in the blank is alphanumeric. So it's a combination of letters and numbers up to 30 characters. And it does grade that. So it's asking for auto graded because we are asking for a right or wrong answer that GradeCam can then support you with grading that response. So I'm going to stick with numeric on this particular one here. And it's asking for, I wanted a year. I put in my answer. What did I want that to be? I'm leaving this as 2000. You still have the opportunity to provide other answers if you want to give additional credit for any kind of numeric responses. If you had students rounding to a certain decimal point, but you want to give them partial credit if they were kind of close to that response, those are kind of some abilities that you can do in the numeric. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go to my next one just to talk a little bit more about fill in the blank. Fill in the fill in the blank looks very similar to numeric, but we're just collecting those alphanumeric kind of responses. So this is kind of, here the question is, what nation does the Black Panther take place in? That was just a fun quiz. My answer is Wakanda, and what my points available to it. You also get a preview of how this looks. Fill in the blank also allows you to put boxes or just a straight line for students to respond in. The nice thing about the boxes is this does help with spacing, particularly for littles, to make sure that they're really spacing those, making it a little easier for your camera to scan those. So you can see that it's fairly similar to the other question types in that I can always adjust my label up here if I want to. If I scroll down, I can add some standards if I would need to. That's the same across all the question types. You just now have a different type of response that you're collecting. So how does this look for students when they're responding from that side and the difference there? I'm going to go to the printed form first, just so you can see that. So this is the form for the assignment. This top one here is numeric. I could add a custom header, but I just chose not to for this particular one. You'll see here, it's just a one line that students write in a response. And then this bottom one is fill in the blank. So on the form, these look very, very similar in terms of how you could set them up. I don't have to have the boxes. It could have looked exactly like this one here. It's just different. The reason why you change whether you wanted numeric or fill in the blank is that just tells the camera kind of some different characteristics to be looking at when they're actually reading the grading or the handwriting. So kind of keeping that in mind, that's basically what it looks like right next to your multiple choice. Here's that open response down here. This looks on digital. Let me go ahead and start this assignment just like this. So it changes it up just a little bit, and then it does kind of prompt kids what type of value that they're looking for in that answer. Move my scans around a little bit so I can type in my response here. If I would just type it. So I could say 2000. And then this one collected down here is whether I'm actually going to write in that word or whatever the answer will be. Okay, so just knowing that you just type these responses, that's a difference of how that appears both digitally and on paper. So I'm going to kind of pause right there just as we talked about setting those question types up. What did they look like and how can you compare them both paper and online, and see if there's any questions that I need to address.
Not yet. We're cruising along. You're doing great.
Awesome. Great. So once you've created the assignment, you've added these particular question types. How does it come in from your students? What does that look like? So if I'm going to jump over to responses, I've already scanned this in. So I have a few scanned responses. So one of the differences in comparison to a regular multiple choice, which you may be familiar with, is that GradeCam actually processes these handwriting as they're coming in so that it knows what it needs to read. So let me turn my camera on here real quick so I can scan one just so you can see how that scans. Got to get on my camera. So as it comes in, you'll see here that it said processing. It already bounced to review. And what that means is that it was processing that handwritten response for that, both the numeric and the fill in the blank, but it wants me to review that and look them over because there is an open response that I need to grade. So that's that teacher piece that I need to review, but I may also want to review those fill in the blank and the numeric responses. So a great way to do this, if you haven't discovered it yet, is the by question button. And this is probably my favorite question when I'm looking at open response question types, but it's very good for a numeric and fill in the blank as well. If I click on by question, I now say what question do I want to look at all those responses? And I'm going to review this one here. It's what year. Click on that, and you can see that it gathers all of the scans in one place for that particular response. So 2000 was correct, 2000 here, 1999, 2000. I can kind of glance through those. Those answers were wrong, so that's why it marks it with an X there, so they did not get any additional points. And then the other one, which was the next one, was a fill in the blank. You can see that one come in. Now, this is what I do like, is it does like to check and say, hey, did this scan it right? Was this the correct answer? And now you notice here they have a B instead of a D. And is that what he wanted to respond by? You can adjust that if you need to. I just hit the blue check. Yep, that's what it was supposed to be. You can go through and review on each of these. Let me go up just a little bit. I want to go down here to another one. Here's one they wrote in Africa, and just say, is that what was supposed to be scanned? I can hit the check there. A lot of different ways of reviewing that information. So one thing I do want to point out down here is what comes in is if a slightly different response, and I say, oh, actually he had an H there. So I'm going to fix that here. However, GradeCam is still going to read that as wrong, is because I said it was Wakanda with no H, W-A-K-A-N-D-A. So if you need to add in additional responses that you want to go ahead and say, yep, that one was going to be a correct one, you can adjust your key if you need to by coming back over to your key. I'm going to go to 4 and I'm going to modify and I'm going to add another answer. So I could put W-H-K-A-N-D-A and give them full credit. The other one that used to be, I can say this, and so I changed it to B, but maybe I don't want to give them full credit because that was a switch around where I want to make sure they're answering with the right letter combinations when they're responding. So I can hit save. So that's just going to regrade it, but it's allowing those different responses that would be collected from a student. If you would see slightly different spellings or different versions or variation, maybe it's you are counting both whether they said it in the plural form or the singular form. A lot of different ways of kind of setting up that particular question to help you out. Remember that always regrades it. The reason they still say review is because I haven't done my last one here. So that comes in on the scans. You see a scan like this. If it was a student portal response or it came in digitally, you would just see this kind of as a text field down here. It would show that, and that's obviously much easier to grade because the handwriting doesn't have to be taken into account as much, but it is graded automatically so that you get those responses very quickly. What I do also think is handy is when you come over here to reports and you break down the item analysis, you'll see that on fill in the blank, it will fill out those responses of what was read for both the fill in the blank and the numeric. So you can kind of get some variations here as well. Did I want to consider this one with an H being considered as right or wrong? Or do I want to give partial credit for that? What are some options that you can do for that? All right, any questions that have popped up, Katie?
Nope, I think everyone's absorbing.
Awesome.
But feel free to type. We'll respond to the chat anytime.
Yep. So just touching back, that great way to review those responses that are coming in on both numeric and fill in the blank is in the by question review. Here are some pro tips to help you out. I touched on that, adding additional answers. If you want to provide like a partial credit for a response that's given, you can always go back and edit that or add that when you create your first key. So that's talking about editing your key. Oops, there we go. The other thing is providing feedback. So what I do think is handy when you're within the GradeCam platform and you're reviewing these responses and you're looking at a student's response, because you want to give them a little bit more information or say, hey, did you check out this resource? You can provide feedback is, review, type today, review chapter 2 and give them in that direction. If I put that feedback in there, that actually goes to the student portal. So if you're doing online assessments or you're having your students review their assessments online, they can get that additional feedback beyond just did they get right or wrong, helping direct them to prep for the upcoming test. A lot of pieces there. So that's that little blue bubble. I like the blue bubble probably the most as we start getting into those more advanced question types, like fill in the blank, but also in particular, open response is probably my biggest one. I love that. Okay. So those are kind of some extra credit or pro tips there to help you out. Looks like I saw something come in, so I want to make sure Katie, I think, is addressing that, so I'll kind of let her keep going with that one. Extra credit. It is a last slide here. It's just some different ways that the different question types have been used. We've kind of reused these resources are showing up in a variety of ways because we address all types of question types that have so many different use cases and different things that you can do. So we've provided some resources around the different question types so you can kind of maybe expand some ideas that you may have in mind or how you can collect those student responses and what could that look like. So just a lot of really good links out to different videos and support sites. Whoops, sorry, I keep jumping on that stuff. So that you can access just from different areas. I also really love these subject specific ideas because if you are a math teacher, you don't want to look at what happens in English sometimes because that your brain doesn't click that way. That's why I said I'm an art teacher, so my brain doesn't click towards math that whole lot. So I love being able to see what happens specifically for my subject area, but also if I'm an instructional coach or you're a coach helping other people in your district, how can you think about how they could use it in their subject area? So these are great resources for just providing that intro to how GradeCam can be expansive beyond just your traditional multiple choice. So awesome. Okay, looks like we just have a question. Tani was asking about the presentation. Yes, you can access the PowerPoint or the slides afterwards if you want and print that off. Feel free to. I would recommend that you favorite it in your Google Drive just so you have these links. Therefore, if you print it, the links are no longer active as soon as you print them. I'm waiting for that technology to come out. So any other questions that we can help with?
Speaking of printing, Kate, that awesome 3 formative activities using different question types might be a good, is that the video or is that the guides with the printables?
This is the video.
Excellent. Yep. Okay, I'll grab the guides.
Yep. She's got them. We got so many resources out there. We don't ever know what to quite pick from. So we always want to give you guys the best resources that are going to best support you in a variety of ways. That's why we give you everything so you can find what you need. All right. We try to keep these quick, short, and sweet. I am going to stop the recording if you guys don't have any additional questions there, but we'll stay on to answer any additional questions you have. But that way, if you want to share this resource with somebody else, they can take advantage of the information that was shared in the presentation as well, and kind of keeping it short as a short part of their day, opposed to really dragging it out. So we're going to stop the recording, but we will stay on.